Africa is for Africans, Asia is for Asians, white countries are for everybody. This is a violation of the United Nations Convention Against Genocide.
An unrelenting stream of immigration, non-stop.
Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century.
The fact of the matter is, the UK is never going to be white again.
The biggest genocide in human history.
They can shoot us, but they can't refute us. It's the Fight White Genocide podcast with Laura, Ken, and Jeff.
Welcome to the Fight White Genocide podcast with Laura, Ken, and Jeff, where we talk about whatever we think is important in the global struggle against white genocide. This is podcast number 17, recorded October 8th, 2020. Today's topic is tackling white supremacy.
Yeah, I'd really like to get across the point that the whole thing about disavowing white, like Trump and Pence have been disavowing white supremacists and all that stuff. But to get the point across is that really all they're doing is disavowing white people. Because, you know, when they use the term white supremacist, well, what is that? It's a white, and who defines it? And we all know that a white supremacist is basically anybody that doesn't hate white people. If you advocate, for a future with white people, you're a quote unquote white supremacist. And the only way to prove that you're not a white supremacist is to advocate in favor of white genocide. So really, it's all about making Trump and Pence disavow their base, disavow white people.
Yeah, we have to define terms. Whenever you're dealing with leftists, they always use code words, and they call anyone that doesn't hate white people a white supremacist, right? And if we look at any objective meaning of it, though, it means you want to supremacize non-white, or you want to supremacize somebody. And there are, I suppose, a handful of people out there that want to do that, but there aren't very many, and certainly we don't.
They only seem to exist in Hollywood movies, as far as if you look up the definition of what a white supremacist is, like you said, it's somebody that wants to rule over non-whites. I don't know pro-whites, and maybe they exist, but I don't know of any pro-whites that want to rule over non-whites. I don't know any, and again, maybe they exist. I've seen them in movies. I've seen the white supremacists, quote unquote, in movies that would like to rule over non-whites. But personally, and I've talked to quite a few pro-whites, and I've read a lot of pro-white stuff on the internet, and I don't know any of them that's advocating to rule over non-whites. I don't know one.
No. Right. So just factually, we're not. But a lot of what Bob talks about is the fact that the whites did used to rule everything. I mean, we were supreme, and there's a lot of whites that want to recapture that. And he's saying, no, you're never going to do that. He said the Tea Party was the last gasp of white supremacy. It was the last gasp of people that just assumed white people were running things and we're going to run everything forever. So that kind of white supremacy, we're trying to get that mindset out of conservatism, or out of anyone with that would call themselves conservative, I guess. Yeah, that's like three different definitions of we could have a white supremacy there.
And the only people that actually fit this definition of those that want to rule over non-whites are the people that call themselves quote unquote anti-racist, that think that white people need to train brown people to be like white people.
Yeah, and that's the routine white supremacy. Everyone assumes white superiority.
Right.
We got to take care of everybody. So it's not exactly the same as supremacy, but by Facebook's definition, it actually is, because they specifically said anyone who thinks white people are better is a white supremacist. So by their definition, it is, even though I think their definition is wrong.
Right. That's not the definition that they actually go by. You have a literal definition, a Webster's dictionary definition. Then you have the anti-white code word. The code words that they use of a white supremacist, and they don't intersect. They're totally different definitions. So it's strange how that works.
So when we're dealing with it, tackling white supremacy, are we responding to the code word or the actual term? Some objective, reasonable definition of white supremacy. That's one thing, and that's the nature of a propaganda war. When you're dealing with dishonest people, they're always trying to tie you in knots.
Yeah, and the Black Lives Matter that are going after quote unquote white supremacy. Well, what white supremacy are they going after? Because it seems like what Black Lives Matter is saying is that white people need to do more for black people, and that in itself is a white supremacist viewpoint. Like, how are we in a position to do more for you? You're assuming white supremacy.
There you go. Yeah, I think that's now you're hitting on the head of where we need to go. That's it. We need to start attacking it from that perspective. They all believe that in this supremacy that we are morally superior to non-whites, that we are the ones that have to take care. Nobody expects any other race. If there was something else going on in the world in some other non-white country, nobody expects any other non-white group to go and help out those. It's all on white people. So I think that's exactly this is the tack that we need to take. Is that they are assuming white supremacy. We don't act supremacist. We want. How can we be supremacist when we want to be separate? And that's another thing that they say that they blame the whole world's problems on the fact that we want to be separate. So that is the argument that we need to go after, is that they're assuming it and then using it as an attack against us. And the fact that we want to separate is not acceptable. The same how we talk about access to white people isn't a human right. That's what Bob also talked about, in the charge, the official that was in charge of school busing that said, white children are a precious resource and they must be distributed carefully. That you couldn't get more of a supremacist statement than that, right? But that access to white people, saying that another one that Bob said about how
white people emanate some kind of wellness field that everyone has to bask in.
Yeah, that white supremacy is this idea that non-whites can't get an education unless they're sat next to white kids. That's their mentality, not ours. And that's what we need to get across. They're the ones that are pushing this.
If everyone assumes white superiority, then in order to get rid of that, you'd have to get rid of white people, right?
Right.
So that's why genocide. So that's their ultimate goal.
Yep.
Absolutely. But the talking points that you would use for when they call you a white supremacist is the same as you would use for if they call you a racist, Nazi, Klan, whatever. Is that anti-whites call white people, any white person that doesn't hate white people, a white supremacist? Any white person that advocates in favor of policies that continue the existence of white people is going to be slandered and libeled as a white supremacist, period. And that's really, and you respond to all of these slurs the same way, because it's the same tactic that they're using. They want to silence white people from acting in their interest, and they do that using slander, libel, and slurs.
It is. That is the short answer, and that the same way that we have hammered the word racist and Nazi, and we need to again attack white supremacist.
To eliminate white supremacy, you need to eliminate white people.
Yep.
That one might require a lot of explanation. Now, to us, that makes perfect sense. But to somebody that is not on message or really understanding our message, we need something, I guess, that's that speaks to the masses about it. And really, it's difficult to tackle this one without going into a deep explanation. And because this is one you have to change everybody's mind. You have to get everybody out of this idea that white people are some kind of special race that have an obligation to all the non-whites of the world to take them in and train them to be white people. It's really more about respecting non-white civilization. There's nothing wrong with the way Africans live. Let them be Africans. Stop thinking that you should train them to be white people. Stop this little Frankenstein society thing that you got going on where you're training black people to act like white people. It's just weird, it's strange, and it's pretty disturbing, actually. It's kind of sick.
But some of these talking points, you throw them out there, even if people don't understand them right away, then you're creating an environment. They'll understand later when it's combined with other talking points and with their own experience.
Yeah, I mean, when all said and done, that your slogan makes perfect sense. It's absolutely true, and it's on point.
So you could say, well, if you think whites are superior, then getting rid of white supremacy entails getting rid of white people. Or eliminating white supremacy means eliminating white people.
And again, another good talking point slogan is one Laura brought up, which is that access to whites is not a human right. So something like that. Because
but that's that is the problem that we have, is that they don't want to live in the countries. Nobody wants to live in the brown third world, right?
They keep complaining about supremacy, but they keep chasing us down.
Exactly.
Stop chasing us down if it's so horrible.
Exactly, and I think that this is it.
Access to white people is not human. Your whole complaint is based on the false premise that access to white people is a human right, and that we can never be separate.
Yeah.
Right. Brown people are oppressed and discriminated and experiencing horrendous racism and all kinds of things by white people, yet they have to chase white people down, and they have to be wherever white people are and taking part in whatever white people are doing.
And that's the whole tenet of white genocide, is because if anywhere was allowed to remain white, all whites would go there. And that's why they can't, they can't allow that. They have to chase us down with diversity, and integrate us. And that's, the integration, the whole concept of integration is based on white supremacy.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Soviet Union, they could have said, all right, you know what, if people that don't like communism, we'll create a different society. You can go and do non-communist stuff. Had they had done that, everybody in the Soviet Union would have moved there. So they can't allow it. They have to force their views and their policies onto the entire society rather than allowing anybody to escape.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the nature of all wordisms. They blame heretics for all their problems. So they demand the whole world has to follow their system or it doesn't work. Another talking point was self-determination is not supremacy.
That's a good one.
You can't be a separatist and a supremacist.
Yep.
We don't want to be too defensive either, though. Like Ken said, you're just saying that to demoralize white people so you can genocide them.
Right. That's the whole point. It's just shut white people up. That's what all these words and the whole demoralization and slander and libel and all that. That's what it's all about. To shut white people up.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, you said that right. We don't want to go too much on the defensive here, is defending, our rights. It is we need to attack the anti-whites that are using this tactic against us.
Right. You can always just go to your standard talking points and say, we got a situation here where every white country is being flooded with millions and millions of non-whites. They're being forced integrated everywhere. It's genocide. And you're talking about white supremacy? You're talking about white privilege? What are you talking about? We can't even have a school. How can we have privilege or supremacy if we can't even have a school anywhere on the planet? You can do something like that.
Yeah, white privilege, what sort of white privilege? If we had white privilege, we would be able to have our own countries.
We'd be able to organize.
Yeah. Privilege for non-whites to live amongst white people, but not for white people to want to live amongst white people.
Yeah, we wouldn't get fired and deplatformed just for advocating for white rights.
Yeah, for human rights for white people. I mean, we're getting deplatformed and harassed and slandered and fired from jobs just for advocating for human rights.
That's it. Well, that's that whole, white people are assumed as morally superior because only white people are expected to think about every other race but their own. Only us. No other group is expected to do that. And if white people speak in wanting to self-determination for their own, some preservation for our own group, we're, like you say, fired, ridiculed, lost a job loss, and kicked out of university. I mean, you can't do it. No other group is denied that except white people.
And I do think the clock is ticking on that point, that only white people are expected to care about other races. And white people are eventually going to realize that, that white people are playing by a golden rule and non-whites aren't. Like, non-whites simply don't care about white genocide. If the policies that are happening to white people were enforced onto blacks or Asians or any other race, white people would be saying, hey, that's messed up, that's genocide, and it needs to stop. But non-whites see this going on to white people, and they say nothing. They say nothing at all.
Yeah.
And white
or they laugh and say, say you're stupid, or they're glad they're getting our stuff,
Right, and white kids deserve it because of things that happened hundreds of years ago that non-whites are just as guilty of. But so I think that's really kind of the ticking time bomb to when white people finally realize this.
It's not reciprocated. You may be loyal to humanity, but humanity is not loyal to you.
Exactly.
But Bob also talked about how there would be at some point a group, if they were smart enough to realize that what was happening was going to be a disservice to humanity. If you get rid of the white race, in the achievements and everything that we have done, if you get rid of that, then the world is just going to turn into a brown, third world.
Yeah, full of different races that don't care about each other.
No, yeah. So nobody's going to.
Or even if everyone was the same color, they'd find plenty of other reasons to hate each other.
And again, that's why it's really a ticking time bomb as far as I'm concerned, to when white people realize that basically getting rid of white people, you're getting rid of all of these moralities that you care so much about. And we're the ones that uphold these things. We're the only ones.
Well, you would think blacks then would, exactly. You would think blacks or, the groups that would start seeing this and seeing, well, damn, we got a good ticket here. These white people, we should be aligning ourselses with them and saying, they have a right to, so do we. It should be. It's kind of actually like, I thought that was that Blexit group by Candace Owens. I had originally been seeing more and more of them. They were at the rally that I went to last weekend, and I had thought it was really good. From what I was seeing, they were speaking on, from a racial perspective for black people and trying to, step away from white,
which is fine. They got most of Africa to go to if they want that. Whites don't have anywhere. Every white country is being flooded with non-whites.
Yeah, exactly.
Black nationalism is a fact. Yeah, you have nations.
Yeah. No, and nobody's opposed to it. Everybody's fine with it.
Nobody's demanding they be turned into brown, mocha-colored
blended out
utopians.
of existence. Yeah.
In fact, they kicked all the Indians out. Nobody said anything.
Yeah, and the Arabs. That's right. They kicked them all out. That's it is all turning to racial politics.
Diversity is never recommended for places that might actually need it. That are actually struggling, developing nations.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sub-Saharan Africa could benefit from this quote-unquote strength of diversity far more than Holland or United Kingdom. If diversity is so great, and it's such a benefit, why not give it to the places that need it?
Yeah. Well, that's right? It. Yeah, and that's another example of this assumed white supremacy, isn't it? When they kicked out in like Rhodesia and that, and they took back over, and then they blamed the whites for not teaching them, before they left, how to run the place. Have you read that story from Bob? Was it? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's new footage coming out of Rhodesia where they're inviting back white farmers.
Right. Yeah.
Have you seen that one? And they're celebrating it. And even Barack Obama's own brother from Kenya, I believe, said that kicking out white people was the worst thing that ever happened to Africa.
Right.
Because the infrastructure, they're not upholding it. Yeah. And there's actually a documentary from China, something I forget what it's called, about dust, Empire of Dust, and he's going through Africa and showing all the things that Europeans left there that the Africans are not maintaining. And
Yeah.
now they're asking the Chinese to come in there and maintain it for them.
We just have to reframe, really reframe this whole concept of white supremacy. It isn't what the anti-whites, the way that they are using it, and then forcing non-discrimination and saying that everywhere must accept, everywhere that's white must accept non-whites. And yeah, exactly. I think that is a good line, what you said, Jeff, there, that getting rid of white supremacy is getting rid of white people.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Ultimately, that is the goal. The only reason I question that slogan is the explanation that has to go along with that. But it's on target. You're over the target.
Same. I mean, it's the same with white privilege. They say the same. And although now they're going with whiteness, they've changed it to this abstract concept of whiteness. But I mean, it's again the same. How do you get whiteness without white people? So how do you get rid of whiteness without getting rid of white people?
Yeah, whatever you do, stay on message. Bob said, "Well, how can you be a white supremacist if you want nothing to do with non-whites?
Yeah.
How can you be a white supremacist if there is nobody around but white people?" You might remind them that, well, separation would solve all these problems you claim to be so concerned about.
Every single one. You can go down the list, like the modern political debates today. All of them have a root in diversity, in white genocide, in the forced integration. Nearly every single political issue, and nobody wants to bring it up. Definitely not the left.
No.
And the right help the left, or the GOP help the left not talk about it, to change the topic. If it ever gets brought up, the GOP will help the left change the topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, GOP is fake controlled opposition. Always keep that in mind. The left is in power. The right just there to put on a show, pretend there's an opposition.
And that's why when Trump was during the debate and they told him to denounce white supremacists, that was them wielding the power.
He put on his shoes, tap dance shoes, and tap dance for him. Yeah.
Yep. And so did Pence.
Yeah. Yeah, man. When Pence brought up about the Trump's Jewish, I just almost couldn't believe that. Man, he had the opportunity to go on the attack there, and that was just the most pathetic response.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been so simple for Trump. Like when they're like, you need to denounce white supremacists. He could have said, well, you call anybody that advocates in white interests as white supremacists. You're doing that to libel and slander white people, and I'm totally against that anti-white proposition that I have to hate my race in order to be a good person. Sorry, not buying it. He could have shut it down like that, and millions of people would have cheered him for that. Yeah. And there's really no response that anti-whites can put up to that. There's really none, other than more slander and libel and more name calling. That's it.
Yeah, he hasn't. Even if he had to just use the term anti-white, just to have, made that. Yeah. So they're just about American values, right? They're about we the people and liberty for all. Just aren't they more like that?
Yeah, it's the same GOP talking point all races need to work together to. Unity. For lower taxes. That's basically it. Yeah. White genocide plus lower taxes equals MAGA.
Yeah.
And if advocating for white interests is white supremacy, what about is advocating for black interests black supremacy? Is advocating for Chinese interests Chinese supremacy? Is BLM black supremacists?
Yeah.
Well, see that concept is laughable to anti-whites because of routine white supremacy. They are so ingrained into believing that whites are a superior race that the whole concept of black supremacy is laughable to them. So when you bring up the phrase black supremacy, nobody really takes it seriously.
Yeah.
Even on SPLC, because I did this once years ago. I'm like, I just want to look it up, and I looked up every time they mentioned white supremacy on the SPLC, and it was like like 100,000 times or something crazy. And then I looked up black supremacy, and it was like 9 times. And they've mentioned the phrase black supremacy 9 times. So it's not something that people take seriously. So, and the reason is because everybody just assumes white superiority. And I don't know if the objective is to just get people to stop thinking whites are a superior race. I don't know if that should be the end goal, or because really, how do you get out of that? Like, how do you get out of this situation where everybody assumes that whites are a superior race and have a moral obligation to save the brown world, whatever that means? Yeah.
So they think white people are better, so they want to destroy them to make everybody equal.
Yeah, it's kind of the underdog complex where you always root for the underdog or something. But they believe it's the underdog. But in reality and truth, whites are the underdog right now. We are a world minority. We are denied our human right to self-determination. We're not allowed to have anything to ourselves. No country, no city, no town, no village, no school, no neighborhood. Everything that is white has to become, quote unquote, multiracial. And we're the only race where this applies to. So we are the actual underdog. We are a world minority and denied human rights. Period.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's every other group. It's expected, they're to be objective for their race. That's expected. It's not considered. Nobody bats an eyelid if you do say black supremacy or anything like that. It should be. Each group should be. But the moment white people speak objectively for our race, we're heretics. It's hate speech. So that's.
White people are inherently
evil
universalists. They think that what applies to them applies to everybody. They think that they're always trying to push for universal values. But we can point out to them that these anti-whites are not universalists. They're just pretending to be universalists. Everything they do is aimed at demoralizing and eliminating white people. So even if white people won't advocate for themselves, at least you could point out that they're being scammed.
Yeah, and again, I still think that clock is ticking to when white people finally realize that they're the only ones playing by the golden rule. Everybody else is playing by the anti-white rule.
That's it. Yeah. It's it all ties into the self-hatred too. This concept of hating ourselves because we're inherently evil, that we've been told to all the evils of the world are because of white people. It's just the opposite, right? The opposite is true. White people have never committed a unique crime, but we have an infinite number of unique achievements.
Even that self-hate can be looked at as a virtuous superiority, though. And I think that's what some white people do in some weird way.
Along the same timeline, our group out under Christianity has become self-hating, just as the Jews are all about self-pity.
Yeah, they want to win the self-hating Olympics. It's actually another form of superiority.
Yeah, they're trying to flex moral superiority by pretending they are martyrs.
How much we hate ourselves.
They think it's maybe going to get them a spot on the mothership or in heaven or whatever.
Yes, it gives you some Jesus points if you hate yourself and advocate destroying your race, because you think it's going to help brown people that don't really care about other races or anybody else but themselves. Yeah, it's definitely conditioned. This is not normal behavior. What they are doing by pretending they're martyrs and putting some kind of sacrifice by destroying their race. That's not normal behavior. It's definitely conditioned.
Self-flagellation. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's very strange behavior.
Yeah, white people haven't been like this forever. They were plenty pro-white even in the 50s. So
yeah,
it's a matter of propaganda. It's not, a lot of people just throw up their hands and say, "Oh, it's this inevitable historical process, or we can't do anything about it." Well, it's the result of decades of anti-white propaganda. Would you at least try the counter propaganda approach, please?
Right. If white self-hatred was some kind of thing, that genetic thing that white people have always had, white people wouldn't be here. They would have gave up to the Moors. Back when the Moors were conquering Southern Europe, white people would just gave up. If this was something that was just ingrained in white people. So I don't really believe the idea that this is somehow just a genetic thing among white people to feel certain ways. I don't believe that.
They have tapped into something in white people, though. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yes, I do believe that there is something that they've tapped into and they've exploited.
Right.
No question. It's, we've done extremely well taking on essentially what's a $1 trillion brainwash campaign against white people and a word war, a war of propaganda. As we've gotten no media, we're not on television, we are banned from social media, from speaking our views. And despite all of this, we have done extremely well at taking on words like racism and taking on the anti-white system. And the way you do that is using terminology, the correct terminology, and attacking the system at its core. And the core is the program towards white genocide, global white genocide via mass immigration and forced integration, forced assimilation.
Yeah, the source of their power is the terms, talking points, and narratives they put out on the media they control. They control the media, but that's not all they do. They use it to push out their anti-white propaganda. And that's the source of their power. So that's what you have to go after. You can't just point out they control the media and whine about it. Yeah, well, yeah. That's like saying, if you're in a shooting war and you complain about the other side shooting at you. Well,
yes.
Yeah, that's not the same as fighting a war. You're not shooting back. You shoot back in a word war. You shoot words back at them.
Yep. You have to have present an opposing slogan, because what they're using are slogans and slurs, things like white supremacist, Nazi, racist, blah blah blah, and slogans like diversity is our strength, and they beat that into you. And they've done it for decades. And, again, it's a $1 trillion brainwashing campaign to do this. The only way to fight back is with your own terminology, your own slogans, and getting it out in mass and not letting them escape from our terminology, making them deny that they're anti-white.
Yeah,
that's one of the most beautiful things when you call somebody an anti-white and then they deny it, because they don't want to be that. They don't want to be that. Just like the guy that's called a racist, trying to deny and prove that he's not a racist. We want them proving that they're not anti-white, and they're never going to prove it enough to me that they're not anti-white. Sorry.
That's it. I think, but it's exactly right. We're not concerned about anything else except white survival. And as long as we stay on that point and keep hammering the fact that exactly they're anti-white and they are, everything that they are doing, the policies that they are pushing and enforcing is white genocide. We can't lose, if we just keep hammering what's right in front of us. And not be concerned about any of the other topics that that come up, that we are solely interested in white survival and pointing out how these anti-whites are pushing every policy to get rid of white people.
Yeah. If you keep the topic on white survival, you will always have the moral high ground.
Exactly. And
anybody that confronts you is going to be against white survival. They need to defend their concept that white people should not be allowed to continue their existence. You should not be defending anything. They should be on the defense. You should always be on the offense. You should always just maintain the moral high ground. Just stick to white survival. I want white people to exist in the future. I like what white people have developed. I like my people, my family, my heritage. I care about it, and I want to maintain it. And anybody that comes at you is clearly against all these things. They are against your race continuing their existence. They should be on the defensive. You've got nothing to defend as long as you maintain that it's about white survival. All this other crap, I don't care about. I don't care about any of it. All these other topics that a lot of pro-whites talk about, I'm sorry. It's a good conversation. It's interesting to listen to, but at the end of the day, a lot of it doesn't matter, and it doesn't give us a moral high ground. You just stay on white survival, period, nothing else. Black IQs or whatever, brown, and all that crap. Crime rates, violent crime rates, that doesn't give you a moral high ground. The brainwashed anti-white is just going to assume that you're bullying non-whites. You're not. It's not good optics, quote unquote, if I want to put it that way.
Yeah. Stick
to white survival, because at the end of the day, that's really what you do care about. That is your focus, whether or not you realize it or not. So just stick to it. Keep it at that, and good things are going to happen for us.
Yep.
And you're not under any obligation to justify your existence or anything you want. And you can't do that anyway. I can't prove that white people should exist. That's some objective transcendental morality. That's just what I want. And they can't prove that whites shouldn't exist either. Okay? So don't try to go in arguments like that. There's a big push now to get pro-whites to divert themselves into some kind of ism, whether it's socialism, fascism, whether it's even fascism or liberalism or Christianity or libertarianism or even anti-Semitism. There's some people that really think all they have to do is expose Jews. That's going to solve everything, or express their hatred of Jews. They really even anti-Semitism can be a religion. We're pro-white. That's it.
Yep.
Just stick with that.
It certainly makes it simple. As long as we can agree on that point. Yeah, exactly.
If you dilute it with anything else, they can point out a contradiction in your reasoning. They can say, well, libertarianism is against pro-white, whether socialism is against being pro-white, or Christianity is against being pro-white, or even anti-Semitism is against being pro-white. Just pro-white. That comes first. You can be all those other things too, but the pro-white has to come first. And if there's a conflict, you got to choose pro-white.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the anti-white is always looking for a reason to get off the topic of white survival. So they're always looking for you to say anything that they can focus on and change the topic away from white survival. Why do they do that? Because the white survival topic gives you the moral high ground. They've lost it. If they're arguing against white survival, they're arguing in bad faith and in a immoral
genocidal.
And if they're asking you never justify the existence of white people. If they ask you to, you point that out and say, you're asking me to justify the existence of my people. Only an anti-white sociopath would do such a thing.
And that's it.
You'd never ask any other race to justify their existence.
Exactly.
Just asking the question puts you at suspicion of genocide, because why would you even ask it unless you thought whites shouldn't exist?
Well, that's it. So if you're saying that white lives don't matter, then you're justifying genocide. If they're saying that, if they're coming at you and saying that white survival isn't okay, then they are justifying genocide. They're saying that whites deserve genocide, that white people don't have a right to exist, and that is not okay. So stick to those points, and you can't go wrong. Yeah, I think the other thing that people, I was reading this one here, how we talk about staying on point and keep hammering the talking points to the moral high ground. Bob talked about the different examples of military strategy, how we hear it a lot today with people getting overwhelmed. Like Ken, you were talking before, people, we can't deal with this, it's too big, but that's exactly how the terminology cuts through all of that. Stop looking at such the bigger picture and stay focused on what's in front of you, and keep repeating the talking points for the audience. And that's how we have achieved so much in destroying the term racist and Nazi. It's just a simple strategy. and keeps us focused on what's right in front of us and not this massive propaganda machine that has been going for years and years and years against demoralizing us. And we have, now got this strategy to fight back. And I mean, poor Bob, he had it, so much over and over how he just wanted people to make these simple points. And we really have proven how effective it is. So.
Yeah, we're not interested in appealing to anybody the way they are or optics or that kind of thing. We're interested in changing the way they think. So we have to, we have to be somewhat abrasive anyway. We have to tell people things they don't want to hear. That's how you take power. You don't take power by agreeing with everybody. Right now they think the way anti-whites want them to think. So we have to change that if we want to take power.
Absolutely. And that's how the terminology, it creates the ideology. And that's it. If we can get white people to start thinking in these terms, and breaking the demoralization that we have been subjected to, that's how we win. That's how we take power. Mass consensus.
Maybe people on our side don't naturally want to work like that, but you're going to have to, and you can be trained.
You're not going to be effective if you don't do it. Yeah,
I assume the people sitting in trenches probably didn't like that either, but at least you're not. At least you're not up to your knees in mud, with rats running around and explosions, the artillery barrages, at least all you got to do is sit in your chair and type on the computer. That's all you really have to do. So even if it's not something you're inclined to do, well, do it anyway.
Yep.
Learn how to do it.
Yep. There's nothing sexy about it. there's no glory about repeating talking points and getting them out there. Nothing sexy or glorious about it, but it's what works. It's worked against white people with the propaganda. Exactly. We're doing exactly what anti-whites did to us, but we've actually got the truth and the moral high ground behind us.
Exactly.
And that's why we are making anti-whites panic. I mean, every week now there is a congressional hearing about how basically the message is spreading and anti-whites are worried about it. And we're the ones doing that. We're the ones introducing the terminology. That's why they bring up white genocide and in these congressional hearings and try to ask the government to help stop the meme of white genocide from spreading.
And you pointed out that people worry about, well, what if they infiltrate us? What if they find out what we're doing? Well, the worst that can happen is they get counter-subverted.
Yeah.
The agents,
Yeah.
Which did that actually happen? Did they mention that?
Well, was it last week or the week before, they had a hearing about how law enforcement are helping pro-whites, are now what they feel are a pro-white force, and that that they need to do something to get rid of people within law enforcement that are becoming favorable to pro-white messages. And they complained about it for like 2 hours. It was last week. It was like they had a Skype hearing, congressional hearing over Skype or Zoom or something. And that was the focus, is that the FBI agents and people like that are monitoring pro-whites are now becoming favorable to the pro-white message, and that it's becoming a problem.
It's undeniable. That's you can't unless they are hating themselves, and that's it. Unless they are self-flagellating constantly, they're going to lose their jobs, or they're fearing that, because white people are starting to wake up to this fact that, hey, we're the only ones that are told to hate ourselves. Every other group can be objective for their group, for their racial interests, but not white people. That's hate.
Speaking about white self-hatred, and not really to change the topic, but Trump did recently bring up critical race theory and talking about banning that. I don't know how serious he is about actually implementing banning critical race theory, but the simple fact that he did bring it up is kind of big on our side, even though it's not very specific. And it would be better if he was. And he actually did. I forgot. He actually did tweet out. Anti-white.
It said someone tweeted and said that anti 101 anti-white 101 training or something. Yeah.
We told him to do that 4 years ago, but right after he was elected.
Yeah, he should have done that on day one. I mean, this is all stuff like why now? And of course, it's election time.
Yeah, I saw someone had tweeted out yesterday that had said if only he or Pence would actually start calling it, speaking out and using that term anti-white. How many people would be, he could be the. I mean, didn't Bob say that too? Like he could be the white savior if he just started speaking on behalf of white people.
That one simple word will send anti-whites on the defense.
Oh yeah.
Guaranteed that the media will be trying to defend themselves from the term anti-white. And you don't score points when you're always on defense. And that's the problem with pro-whites and the conservative movement, is that they're always on defense, and that they score no points and they advance nothing.
Yeah.
And you're only going to score on offense. And the way you go on offense is by attacking them, pointing out that they're anti-white, pointing out the crime being committed, white genocide, pointing out that you have the moral high ground because you are arguing in favor of the survival of all races, not just white people, but you focus on white people because it's your race and it's being attacked. So you are taking a moral high ground, and they are objecting to what is, universally a moral stance to continue the existence of a group of people.
But Ken, you're being divisive. You're just as bad as they are.
Yeah.
Well, we're not. We use the tactics that work. That's like saying, well, if the other guy is using rifles and machine guns and artillery, then if we use the same weapons, we're just as bad as they are.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, as you pointed out, all of their stuff is a scam. It's a con. Well, we're just telling the truth. That's our one advantage.
And it's how it destroys the systems. It's destroyed the Soviet Union, right? It exposed the simple truth that if it's such a workers' paradise, then why do they need guns at the border keeping people in? If it's such a place where people want to live, why do they need guns at the border? If Mexico is such a place where people want to live, why are they all coming to white countries? You
have to repeat these things because you're dealing with $1 trillion in brainwashing.
Yep.
You can't just say it once and expect everybody to believe it or even understand it.
Repetition works.
Right. Propaganda works. I don't like it. I hate it.
Yep.
That's the reality. People.
It is the reality. They respond to being heard over and over and over, and that's exactly what has been used against us.
But our enemies are really good at differentiating their market. They want every psychological type to have an anti-white alternative, whether it's libertarianism, socialism, the Jordan Peterson route.
Yep.
Yeah, another ism. Another wordism.
Yeah.
Another separate loyalty.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're not putting their race first, and that is where you're going to have conflict with these people, because they won't put white survival first. They're going to put their religion first and what they believe the Constitution is.
Yeah, I think one of the things though is that what's actually more important than getting them on our side is getting them to shut up when pro-whites talk, like rather than try to, getting them to shut up is equally as good as getting them on our side. Whenever somebody advocates white interest, these people that respond, oh no, blah blah blah, whatever, diversity is our strength, blah blah blah, getting them just to kill that.
But Ken, that's infighting.
Yeah. That's just it. I don't want them to fight. I don't want to fight them. I want them to if they're not.
It's not really infighting though if they're not on my side.
What's that?
It's not really infighting if they're not on my side to begin with.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But my point is that getting them to shut up is just as good as getting them to convert. Okay. You want to call it conversion?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is. They are. Yeah, they're not on our side, and that is the problem, because they're probably, if not just, worse than the ones that are straight out anyway.
The issue is what's your highest loyalty? One of them has to come first.
Yeah. Well, they choose their words.
Yeah, you can have mixed loyalties, but one of them has to come first. Yeah. Which one is it? If it's not race, then you're not on my side.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll stab me in the back.
Yeah, exactly. Never believe a word is word. Yeah, I saw you post that the other day. That was a good one. Yeah, but that's it. That's it. You have to choose one thing. And that's why Bubble Boy said, if we can agree on that, first and foremost, that our race has the right to survival, then you can, as long as we agree on that point, you can believe in unicorns or Jesus or whatever you want to believe in. But you have to agree on
high
that.
taxes, whatever.
Yeah.
As long as you put, white survival as the most important thing, then everything's fine. Everything will work out.
Free cotton candy. I'll even go along with that. If you want to save the human white race.
That's what I tell liberals. Like, a lot of your stuff is actually not bad, but you're advocating white genocide, and so really I can't go along with that. So your whole worldview is suicidal, genocidal too.
Totally. Well, guys, it's awesome. It's really great to talk to you guys again. So good.